Okay, everybody. So this video is going to be the video for Lab 4. I'm going to do this video with Eclipse, but also we will navigate over to, oh, I can't click the buttons, I thought. Navigate over to JDoodle as well, and so we can do it online. So on JDoodle, I need to say that I'm making Java file, and we'll just call this Lab 4. I guess I'm not logged in. Better log in. And yeah, start. So this is just to have something over here where I can do it in online as well as in Eclipse. I'll just delete what's inside there. And let's actually look at the lab. So this lab is very simple, especially if you watch the previous lecture. So if you go to modules and you look at the week 5 page, which is the current default, um, week 5 lecture page, then you will see that we have lecture 1 in week 5. And it says we're going to go over typecasting in here. And typecasting is what we have in this lab for lab 4. So if you want like a longer um, explanation of what we're doing, then check out this lecture 1. Now, having said that, in lab 4, we're going to be doing two things here. We're going to be doing calculating an average, and we'll need the type conversion or type casting to do this. And in the second part, we're going to need to get some characters out of a word. And so you'll want to watch the lecture 2, which is not here yet, but you'll need to watch the lecture 2 if you want a longer explanation of this character extractor. Okay. So we do have two parts I can see here, and it says that we're going to need a screenshot of the results, and also we're going to need our two labs. Now, you can see it kind of recommends Lab 4 Problem 1 and Lab 4 Problem 2 as the names of them. Of course, it doesn't really matter as long as you turn them in both and you turn in screenshots of them working. So if I go to Eclipse, let's go ahead and create our first part. So I'll go File, New, Java Project. I will say lab 4, I'll do O4 underscore part 1. I just need to give it a name. As always, double check that you have unchecked moduleinfo.java. It'll stay unchecked, but if you ever have problems, that might be the issue. So we have our project here. I'll expand it. I'll click on SRC, and then I'll go to File, New, Class. I'll also call this lab 4 underscore part 1. I'll check the box for public static void main string. And there we go. We got an empty project in here. Now, what do we need to do? So looking at part 1, we're going to be calculating an average, and we're supposed to be using type conversion. So it says we should be reading 3 integers and to use these variables. So I'll just copy paste those variables in here, and we're supposed to be reading those from the user. Now, if we're supposed to be reading something from the user, that means we need an import statement up here. So import java.util.scanner. You should be learning this and remembering this now. Then inside of your main method, we need to declare a scanner object, which is scanner with capital S, SCNR. That's your name. Technically, you could change that. And then we need to say new scanner, capital S, system, capital S, dot in, like that. And that's to set up the scanner object, which is what we can use to read the keyboard. Now, again, this should all be familiar with you. You've done this many times by now. So we got our variables in here, but it tells us that we need to read the test scores from the user. So we need them to type them in. Now, it shows here that we're just going to type them in on one line. It doesn't actually matter. So we should tell the user what to do, enter 3 test scores. So to tell them what to do, I'll say read test scores from user. We should do a system.out.print or print line. Ah, enter test scores. We probably want a colon and a space on there. So that'll tell them what to do. Of course, if I run this now, it'll run it, but it just says enter 3 test scores and stops. So you can see it says terminated right up there. Of course, that's because, we haven't read them in yet. So to read in the scores, it'll be score 1 equals and scnr dot next, capital INT, like that. That'll read the first score. Now we need to read in 3. And since we did tell them to type in 3, I don't need to say enter the first test score, enter the second test score, enter the third test score. I'll just say enter all 3, and then we just need to read all 3. So it's the same line 3 times. You just have to change what variable we're going to store the answer in. So at this point, what our program will do is this. If I run it, it'll say enter 3 test scores. I can either type them in this way, like that, and it'll finish, or I can type one in, hit enter, type another in, hit enter, type a third in, hit enter. So it doesn't matter if you type them in on the same line or not. You just have to type in 3. And when you're done, hit enter, or hit enter on every line. It's all the same. So we read our 3 scores in. Now they're all integers. Now, the next thing it tells us, or actually above this, it says we are going to be calculating the average as a double, and we're supposed to be using this variable. So let's put that in right up here with our other variables. And now we want to calculate the average of these 3 scores. So calculate the average. Now, let's look back here and see how it's supposed to look. Now, first thing we want to do is we want to print out the average as a decimal. So, right, if we had these numbers and we average them, you generally are not going to get a whole number. In this case, we had 84.3333. So yeah, so we had a decimal, but you could also round it to an integer, and that's also what we're going to print. So just to practice our typecasting. So let's calculate the average like normal. So in order to calculate the average, we're going to have to say average. That's the name of the variable. Is it? Maybe something's misspelled because it's white right now, but let's see. So to calculate an average of 3 things, you would just do score 1 plus score 2 plus plus score 3. And then you have to divide by 3. Now, this is going to calculate the average incorrectly. I'll show you, because if we kind of print out results, I'm lazy, so I'll copy an old print statement. If we're going to if we're going to print out our results, and I want to say like average, and I'll say as a double, because we're going to print it out 2 different ways, and then put the average in there. And if we'll see that if we type in different scores, like let's say I do 100, 90, 85. And you'll see that the average it says there is 91. But if I grab a calculator and I do 100 plus 90 plus 85, and then I divide that by 3, the test scores average should be 91.66666666, right? So this is not right. And the reason it's not right is because we did the calculation up here with integer divided by integer. The easiest way to fix that is just going to be to change that 3 to 3.0. As soon as you change it to 3.0, then it's going to calculate this average correctly. I don't remember what I did, 100, 90, 85. Yeah, and then we get that. Now, as soon as we do this, it shows me a couple things. First of all, I misspelled the word average there. Second of all, we see 91 point, and it's a lot of decimal places. And in here, it says that we should be rounding the numbers properly. and printing them to two decimal places. Printing them to two decimal places means we can't use the print line function. We got to use the printf function. And that means that the way we do this is a little bit different. So we would say average, double, and then you have to use a placeholder in here, percent like dot to f, you may remember. And then a comma average, like so. Now, if I do this, so we'll go 100, 90, 85 again, and it prints to two decimal places. Now, the other issue with this is that if I did this, we have to print it out again as a decimal, but you'll see if I run this that they print out on the same line because there's no new line. So when you're using printf, it doesn't automatically go down to a new line. So you'll have to click in here, and then right after the %.2f, you'll have to add a backslash and an in. And you should probably just get used to this idea that if you're using printf, you'll need a backslash in order to go down to the next line. So you get used to adding them at the end of every statement, basically. So now they print correctly, except that we want the second one to be printed as an integer. And so to print it as an integer, we'll have to typecast it. So the way you typecast average, which is a double, to an integer, is just right before average, you put parentheses int. And that right there is typecasting it. So it'll turn the average into an integer. And let's just change this statement here. So we're printing out the average as an integer. Try it again, 100, 90, 85. Uh-oh. And this did not work. Oh, it did not work because the %.2f only can print a double, and I just turned it into an integer. So this is a little bit annoying, but we would either have to change this back to a print line to print the integer, or just change the %.2f to %d, but you have not been taught that. So you would have to get this error and know or understand or find out somehow that in order to print as an integer with printf, that it's %d. I could have just deleted this and then used like a standard print function, and then I wouldn't have had this issue for that second one. But I just solved it with printf by changing it to %d here. Okay, so that one's done. So what do we need to do? Well, I guess first of all, I got some blank lines I can delete. We've got our whole program up here. Everything is good. I need to screenshot this. So on a Mac, I would screenshot this. I only need this much. Um, and then we can start our second part. So for our second part, you could do a new Java project. Something I usually do not do is, but you can, is in the same project, you could actually add another class, and it could be part two in the same class. The issue there is that sometimes sometimes you accidentally run the wrong class when they're in the same project. So that's why I haven't done it that way. And I guess I won't again. So we'll do lab 04 underscore part 02. I will do a new class, and I'll call that lab 4 underscore part 2. Check the box for public static void main. There we go. However, instead of doing that one over here in Eclipse, I'm going to skip over to the JDoodle here, and I'll do it over here, just in this other site. So what are we doing? Well, we got to read the instructions, which are here. And so the instructions say, write a program that prompts the user to enter a single word and reads it. Okay. So we have the same issue as we had before, which is, let me open our previous problem. We want to read from the keyboard. So we're still going to need this import Java util scanner in our new program. And we're still going to need our scanner object in our new program. So there we go. I keep getting text messages. Okay. My lunch is coming. Ha ha ha. Okay. So how does this work? So what are we doing? We are, according to the lab, prompt the user to enter a single word and reads it using this. So this line right here, keep skipping to the wrong thing. This line, string word, creates an object that's a string. The name is word. Scanner.next. So not next int, not next double, just next. That reads one word. Now, over here, I said word. That was the variable name. So that could have been anything. It could have been like my fave word or whatever you want. It's just a variable name. So there we go. Now, before we do that, though, we should do a system.out.println or print to say, like type a word, something like that, right? Um, there we go. I'm going to pause this for 1 second. Hopefully there's no time will pass for you. All right, I'm back. So I think the last thing we did was we said type a word. And if we run this now, which if I'm in JDoodle here, not in Eclipse, the way we would run this is by clicking the button that says execute up here. So we click that. It'll take a little longer. What do we got? Oh, look at this. I typoed this. So this must be a mistake in the lab. Um, I keep clicking the wrong thing. Yeah, it's got a lowercase s there. That's a mistake. Uh, oh, also, actually, the whole problem is this. I'll fix this typo before you see this, but the problem is that here my scanner was SCNR and this scanner was called scanner. So um, I'll fix that to say SCNR in the version that you see. And so let's fix that and hit execute. It'll run this time. Type a word, and we could type in any word we want. So like I can just say like hello, and then we're done. Okay. So we read one word in, then what? Again, I keep alt tabbing when I just need to click over to the other tab. And so what we want to do with this word is we want to extract and print the first, the third, and the last character from that word. And so there's this method, and you can find it. Also, we'll talk about it in lecture 2 for week 5. But if you Google Java string methods, you will find a lot of different references. You could also use the textbook linked in the module for this. There's a free textbook linked in like the week 1 module that has a full textbook for Java. So we have all these string methods, and these are things you can do with a string basically. And the first one on this list is character at, char at. And it says it returns the character at the specified index. So this is actually pretty simple. So the way it works is you can create, well, I guess I don't need to create a variable here. Let me just do this. We can just do system.out.print. And I could say, what do we want to print? I'll say first character. What is the first character from the word we type in, right? So if I typed in hello, the first character would be H. So the way you get it is the name of our word, or the variable name is word, right? So it would be word dot, and then we would want the character at, that's the name of the method that we just read. And then in parentheses, you put the number of the character that you want. And the numbering starts at 0, which this will be covered in the upcoming lecture. So this right here, word dot character at 0, is the first letter in word. So when I run this now, let it run, type in a word. It can be anything you want. So, right, I could say Oreo. Why? Because I have a box of Oreo cookies next to me. And it'll say first character O. Simple, right? If I run this again and it says plate, I also have a plate next to me. First character P, right? Simple. And so you just change that number uh, to different numbers to get different letters. So if I were to do this again, the exact same thing, I could do I think it says third character. Is that what it says? It says we should print the first character and then the third character. Yeah. So the third character uh, would be what? Well, so the thing here is that the numbering starts at 0. So the way this is like the P here is index 0. The L would be at index 1. The A would be at index 2, right? So A is the third letter, but the index is 2 because we started counting at 0, right? So it's 0, 1, 2. So third letter is actually 2, and that's kind of what the point is to help you recognize that the numbers are starting at 0. So the third one is actually at 2. Um, I keep resizing this window, and I feel like that is causing me issues here. But we'll type in a word. What kind of word? Uh, Plastic. So the first character is P and the third character is A, and they came on the same line because I didn't do print line. Let's change those to print line. Let's type my name. So the first character is G and the third character is E, but those are numbered 0 and 2. Okay. Now, then the last thing it says to do is the hardest thing, not that hard, um, is that you have to print the last letter. So you have to print the last letter in your word. And the problem with that is you don't know how many letters are in your word. And so to print the last letter, it's a two-step process. So to print the last letter, we need to know how many letters there are. How many letters are in the word? So it's actually a two-step process. So the first step would be to get like the length of the word. I'm gonna say like I'm just gonna call it L, int L. But to get the length of the word, you have to do word dot, and then looking back at our Java string reference, you'll see down here in L that there's a length, and it returns the length of the string, which is, how many letters is it? So you can say like int L equals word dot length, and this will be the like how many letters there are in the word. Okay. And then once you know how many letters there are, we'll be able to print out the last one. Now you might think, okay, if we want the last letter, that if the length is L, we'll just put an L in there um, and try to run it. But what you'll see is that we will have an error here. So like if I type a word like bowl, and it prints out the first character just fine, and it prints out the third character just fine, but then we get an error when it tried to print out the last letter. And so that error comes from the fact that, we don't know how to count right, because remember what we said, the counting starts at 0, right? So B is index 0. So the indices are 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So the last letter here is index 3, but there are 4 letters. So there's 4 letters, but there is no letter 4. Does that make sense? There's 4 letters, but the last letter is letter 3. And so the problem with this is that this number that you calculate for the length of the word is actually one bigger than the last index. So when you want to print the last character, you can't print the L here. You have to print L minus one. That's going to be one less than the length. And that will be the actual last letter. And so if you run this again with L minus one in there, now I can type in a word. I could type like a long word, like monitor, and you'll see that M is the first letter, N is the third letter, and R is the last letter. And it just does it right now. Um, so you have to subtract one from the length. That's going to be the last index. So that's just kind of a be careful. Like the last index is one less uh, than the length. And that's all down to the fact that we start our counting at zero. Okay, so this is the lab and we are done now. And so that kind of understanding that you can get the length of a word and that the last character is actually stored at one less than that number, that was kind of the point here. Also knowing the counting starts at zero, which is why the last letter is one less than the length. Um, that was also what we needed. So anyway, you run this, you screenshot the output just to show that it works. And then you would need to submit your Java files and your screenshots. I'm not going to submit this one at this point. Hopefully, you've submitted, 3 or 4 labs since we started counting the labs at zero as well. Um, and there you go. You should also put your name on it, which I did not do on this one. So that's it for now. Hopefully this was useful. Again, you can watch lecture 1 this week for more help with part 1, and you can watch lecture 2 this week for more help with part 2. Okay, that is it for now. See you later.